Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay. Welcome to the Battle for Azeroth Alpha and the first look at the Feral Druid. For some reason, Feral Druid and Balanced Druid both went over 4 hours of live testing. Both of them have seen not really any significant changes, but the significant change is how much is in the Scythe of Elune and the Fangs of Ashmane, and having those removed, the new baseline of Feral and Balanced Druid come into play. Also, there are a lot of just overall Druid changes sort of across the board here, which obviously have overreaching effects on every single Druid spec that you would play. But Feral Druid, I'm not going to go in to trying to min-max the DPS rotation, right? The whole madness with Jagged Wounds and Savage Roar and Blood Talent is still there, as I imagine many of you may groan right now. There are no talent changes right now, just some like energy changes across the board. So if you know how Feral Druid works, and you know the madness of juggling all the plates that you juggle as a cat that is for fight, that is still very much there. If you want to, of course, listen to or watch through all of the testing segment, that will be uploaded right here on the YouTube channel. And if it's your first time here on YouTube, or you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe button is right over there. But you can keep up to date with all of the First Pass, Second Pass, War Fronts, Island Expeditions, all of the shows that are going to be coming soon, back when the live podcasts start, once I'm done in the testing phase. All that good stuff right down over there, or the video description box down below for my socials, and the live stream where all this testing happens and squishes itself together so that I can jabber for 30 or 40 minutes to you. So, the cat is for fight. That's still very much the case. There are some baseline stuff that I need to go over real quick. So, let's go over baseline abilities. Rebirth has a cast time again. You do not shift out of cat form when you cast it. I repeat, you do not shift out of cat form when you cast it, so don't freak out about that. However, it does have the cast time, so be it. However, because the cast time returned, it's 100% HP, 20% mana. The other battle reses, DK and Warlock, are both 60-20. So they sort of put more power into it, but you do have to physically cast the spell. Unless you're a Bear Druid. Bear Druids are still instant, but it costs 10 rage. But obviously you still stay in bear form while you're doing it, because you can't just sit there and cast a spell. That's still there. But for Resto, Balance, and Kitty Cats, you have to hard cast that spell. This was taken away as a glyph in Warlords, then made baseline in Legion, and has now been reverted back here because of the way that the CC toolkit stuff has been fixed. You also do have Soothe, which removes enrage effects. Tranquilizing Shot was removed from Hunters recently for some reason. So only Druids have an enraged Squelcher, basically, or enraged dispel, which may or may not make them required for certain encounters. So yay, look forward to that. And then also, you have Hibernate has returned. Hibernate still has the cast time, only works on Beast and Dragonkin, but does not have the CC rules that apply to like Pins and Needles and the Paladin CC, or in Prison, right? The Demon Hunter CC. It doesn't have a cooldown, which is still strange. Of course, you still have Entangling Roots. That's still baseline, right? So that hasn't changed. So the CC kit is kind of... I'm not sure where they're going with that. Dash also had an update because you lost Displacer Beast, so baseline dash now is 10% weaker for 5 less seconds, and it has a 1 minute less cooldown, however, so you can use it a little bit more frequently because, of course, you all just set and forget Displacer Beast, but that's gone now. The balance affinity change that affects all the other specs that take balance affinity other than the actual astral influence of a balanced druid. You lost 2 yards on the effective nature of balance affinity. Guardian Affinity also has an update to Frenzied Regen. Let me grab that real quick. Where Frenzied Regen now heals 25% of your maximum HP over the course of the hot. No longer has like a scaling damage done thing, snapshotty madness. Balance Affinity's Moonkin form also still has a cooldown, has a 90-second cooldown for whenever you're actually going to use Balance Affinity for Moonkin form itself. Usually you got pigeonholed into this because the extra yardage is there, but I venture a guess you won't be doing that as much because Guardian Affinity, super strong, the extra utility there to not die because of how the flat HP regen is kind of more easily usable. Put you in a bear form, gain 20 rage, you can pop Frenzied Regen, heal yourself up a little bit, go back to action. And then Restoration Affinity has Wild Growth attached to it. So you have Wild Growth, Swiftmand, and Rejuvenation. Now this comes into play, I think, for like dungeons and island expeditions mainly. Island expeditions and probably warfronts. You're not always guaranteed a healer, and bringing that triage, that little external extra bit, is sort of what Druid and the hybrids bring. So that is a change. And talking about the form changes here, you do have a slight nerf. The Balanced Druid armor was reduced. The bear form armor was also buffed. So bears have more armor, moonkins have a little less, because obviously, but you lost half of the stamina bonus, or I think it's 30%. Yeah, 30%. Goes down to 25% stamina gain, down from 55%. Because for feral, balance, and mostly restoration druid, using bear form to have the huge stamina amp and frenzied regen because of guardian affinity was way too good, and no other healer could do that for like Mythic Plus and high damage. They couldn't. Holy Paladin could because of like bubble and stuff, right? And the higher HP pool, but it disproportionately made Resto Druid too powerful. So that's a little bit of a nerf there. But going on to cat form specifically, in an attempt to hopefully make the damage scaling work a little better for your auto attacks, you do have a auto attack damage scaling aura in your cat form that amplifies your auto attack damage by 40%. So the new weapon damage formula factors in like main hand, offhand, weapon speed, madness, and attack power, right? Derived from agility and whatnot. And of course it tosses in your versatility in there somewhere. But now the damage scaling on the auto attack back end, I think Blizzard's probably pulled some of the damage out of your bleeds and out of your main kit to allow your auto attacks to scale up to be more part of the rotation. Now it's not like a crazy, get out of here, bug. It's not like a crazy, ridiculous amount of damage that your white damage will contribute to, but Feral Druid had a problem with weapon scaling. Something with Windwalker Monk, weapon scaling issues, and you're back to looting weapons again. So they're putting in a, hopefully a bit of a band-aid fix to make that not be so awkward, or a little more powerful or whatever. But on top of that, bleeds now scale with haste. If you didn't know, and you live under a rock or waiting for me to tell you about this. So Rip, Thrash, and Rake all scale with haste, like any other spell damage dot would. Also poisons for Rogue's Will as well. So to be clear, all haste scaling does for the bleeds is add more ticks into the duration. The duration does not change. The only change in duration would be if you talent into Jagged Wounds. Talents that do this, right? This squishes the accordion, but keeps all the ticks in that accordion window, whereas the normal amount just adds more ticks in the same accordion window. So Thrash still is 15 seconds. Rake is still 12 seconds, or sorry, 15. That the movement speed snare is the 12. And then Rip, of course, is 24 seconds. No matter how much haste you have, all it adds is more ticks. So you'll always have a bit of a partial one now because you'll have any type of haste. I have 29% haste right now. So Rip ticks 16 times over 24 seconds. So I'm not sure if that's going to change any way that the scaling will work with the Feral Druid. Probably not, because crit is still too powerful and mastery is still just too much flat raw damage because bleeds ignore armor. But so you have haste scaling because of the auto attack amp. You have haste scaling because of bleed scale with haste to add more ticks of your mastery in said bleeds. And of course, haste gives you energy regeneration, which may or may not be as useful due to the fact of critical strikes and primal fury. The stuff you're all used to, right? That's all still here. Primal Fury is still the double combo point on the initial hits of abilities that would generate a combo point. So things like Swipe, Rip, and Thrash, and Shred, all that stuff, all the initial hits give you the extra combo point. Predatory Swiftness is still here, the same way you'd activate Blood Talons or just interweave your wild growths, or not wild growths, your regrowths or your roots. Omen of Clarity still remains baseline at roughly 6 RPPM. I was asking I have like a page and a half of stuff for Feral Druid and over 2 pages, or just about 2 pages for Balanced Druid to submit to Blizzard, because they added new tooltips that would say RPPMs on the actual like bottoms, like approximately blah, 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 procs per minute. But they didn't do that for Omen of Clarity or updated it at all. So for Moment of Clarity, there's no additional, it just doubles the proc chance, but how many procs do you get baseline? Why doesn't it say in the game, Blizzard? It's whatever. But that is still there. After we get a little more gameplay out of the way, I will sort of walk through the problem that Feral Druid has and ask for your feedback. We got a lot of feedback during the live stream today too, but I want some YouTube comment feedback. Let me know what your thoughts are toward Feral Druid in this current state, because it hasn't really been updated very much. But Mastery still Razor Claws. You still, of course, have Infected Wounds, which is the snare on your Rake, which is only a 20% snare, down from a 50% snare. So stickiness of the Feral Druid will be a little less important, but that's just overall the CC changes across the board. Of course, you still have Feral Instinct, and then everything else remains the same. You still, of course, have your Feral Affinity for your movement speed. All that good stuff is still there. Overall, let's see. Tiger's Fury was added to the global cooldown. So that's a big one, apparently. Even though I don't think it's much of a problem, unless you're in Incarnation or Berserk, because you'll just waste energy, because the extra global does slow down how fast you can react to it. Barely, right? The Feral Druid has a 1-second locked global. Same thing with Rogues, Windwalker, Monks. So it just adds to juggling other plates, basically. But it's still 60 energy, but you don't have like Legendary Ring to give you more energy buffer to not waste energy. So even in just regular testing that I was doing earlier, it's quite possible just to waste a lot of energy. And it feels really strange that you can waste energy and possibly waste combo points because of Primal Fury, which I guess if you're a Feral Druid, you're just kind of used to. Maybe. Again, do not worry about the damage I do to this target dummy due to the fact that it takes 100,000% damage. Also, there's a floating torch in the air. And it's level 1. But overall, Feral just feels fine. It just feels like it cannibalizes some of its own parts of the spec for some reason. And I'm not exactly sure why it does that. I'm just going to play like simple standard Feral where you have an A and a B rotation. I'm not going to do any madness with stacking any buffs right now. So the overall rotation just feels fine. It works. You have this build and spend, build and spend. Right? That's how it works. But it doesn't feel good when you're trying to do any min-maxing nature with Feral Druid due to the fact that you have really weird issues with... There's the global cooldown change, not a big deal. Oh, I have Jagged Wounds right now? Oh, no, I don't. Never mind. I just refreshed accidentally instead of hitting a Ferocious Nibble. Where's the Ferocious Nibble? Yo! Ferocious Nibble still has the energy component with it where it eats up to 50 energy for double damage, which may or may not be a good thing to keep having in the game, but more on that later. So other baseline changes. Stampeding Roar, which was a big, awkward problem throughout all of this expansion because everyone brought Guardian Druids because of Guttural Roars. Guttural Roars, that talent that Guardians have, gone. Poof. So Stampeding Roar is a 2-minute cooldown with a 15-yard effective radius baseline. It's also a 60% movement speed for 8 seconds. That remains unchanged. And Balance Affinity, as I went over earlier, is the same plus 3 yards for both Feral and Guardian. So you can only have 18 yards. There's no more 45 or 48-yard madness with Guardian Druids Stampeding Roar. That was obviously a problem. So if you're going to be using Stampeding Roar regardless of Balance Affinity or not, they gave you a little more wiggle room to 15 yards. Not that bad. It's about like this. Let me double check here. This is, where's my 5 yards at? It's 15 yards is about here. Yeah, about there. So draw a circle around me right here. That's still a huge area of effectiveness if you are within your raid group, right? You can make that work still. But at least it's shared between cats and bears, so there's no madness about your cat roar sucks and the bear roar is awesome, right? That was weird. So now their baseline is the same for both specs. And then there's some energy changes. So this is a weird one because I don't know why they did this. So Brutal Slash went up to 10 more energy, right? It's 30 energy now. I think a lot of the issue is Brutal Slash still barely does more damage than Shred. Just barely. It's like 100 more damage more. And of course it'll scale a little bit more. But right now on live, Brutal Slash is ridiculously tuned. Because they wanted to give Feral Druids AoE. And not every single spec of the game should be good at all the types of damage in World of Warcraft, right? There are 5 styles of damage in World of Warcraft. 5. There is single target damage, single target burst damage, AoE, AoE burst, or cleave and cross dot. Feral Druid got so much in the AoE category, like so many bolster effect because of Ashmane and the brutal slash scaling, to give you AoE options, but Cat is just not for AoE. Cat is cleaving and cross-dotting with rip spam, right? And brutal slashing or running around with swipe and thrash, or just pure single target focused damage. Just good at that. You ignore armor on all your main abilities, or all your main damage ignores armor. And the stupid armor madness, I talk about that for like half an hour on the VOD. It's still in the game. So go to your strengths. You're a single target based class most of the time. Everyone loses all their AoE components from their artifact, right? Almost every single piece is gone. I lose my AoE funneling, which is kind of be weird because that was a big niche that Enhancement Shaman had. So that is still a thing. But Brutal Slash on single target was always this weird contentious point. Raising the energy cost by 10, the early scuttlebutt in chat was that this might remove it from the possible rotation. Obviously, it kills it from using it anywhere near our incarnation. It might still keep it in the Tiger's Fury window to have that 15% additional damage window on top of Brutal Slash might help it because it, of course, will scale it a little more. But it's still not enough damage to matter. It is 10 energy less. And that's still the thing, right? When it was 20 energy less on live right now, it's like, well, duh. But that still might be a thing. But of course, Savage Roar, as you see here, still exists. And this brings me into the middle part of the video where I'm going to rant a little bit about this stuff. So you still have Moment of Clarity was actually nerfed to 15% damage on the Shred, Thrash, Swipe, or Brutal Slash proc. You still get the energy, and you still have the double chance for it to proc. Blood Talons was buffed, though, to 25%. Now, this may be just because of the scaling when the squish happened. Blood Talons had to be buffed a little bit because it was not strong enough internally, possibly. But the fact that they buffed Blood Talons and nerfed Moment of Clarity. And Alun's Guidance is still terrible. I have it talented right now, so you don't see a ton of stuff in the spellbook, right? I don't know. Because again, this build then still exists. This Blood Scent, or Lunar Inspiration, depending on your gear, apparently I was told. Jagged Wounds, Savage Roar, Blood Talons. This build still exists. And I tried to like wrap my head around the juggling on the plates for about an hour, maybe 40 minutes on stream today. And it's frustratingly awkward that this still exists and the damage you gain from it, right? Even weaving in your clear cast thrashes on AoE, right? Getting good procs and strings through Primal Fury and procs of Omen of Clarity that speed up the rotation. The juggling of Savage Roar on top of the Tiger's Fury window because of the GCD change, right? So it kind of slows the spec down just ever so much. It just has a weird feel to it. Now, I'll sort of show you the weird feel to it. But again, this doesn't matter because I'm not a Feral Druid, pro here. I don't know what I'm doing all the time. But I tried to understand the fundamentals of how this spec is supposed to work, right? Or try to. And it always feels very weird to try to get the spec to work. I don't have enough haste to make this happen, I don't think. I think I did. Oh, yeah. Barely. So, it's just... If you get lucky, and you get procs... See, now I'm one behind on my hit there. I have to refresh this. There we go. If you get lucky and the rotation plays, if you get Omen procs, if you get crits, which again is crit scaling, then it works. We're gonna have to do the refresh first before this. I needed to snapshot both of those though. I messed that up, which is not a big deal because you can just go back around here. Still have enough time. I'm not gonna get the rake refresh there within the Tiger's Fury window, but now I have to build again and refresh early. Let me refresh early here. There's no, I mean, I probably should have, I still didn't use my Blood Talons there, which I should have. Right? That's going to fall off. We'll be able to do, see, now you have this weird timing window where I'm going to burn all of this. Oh, see, I lost the window. There's not enough time in the rotation sometimes where you want a Tiger's Fury right there, but I didn't build fast enough to get back to Blood Talons to be able to hit, to activate Blood Talons, to Tiger's Fury, to waste energy, to then re-rip and rake, and then start rebuilding again. There's this feeling that this build, even though if you can juggle it properly, if you get enough crit to make Shred actually crit enough that you hit 2 shreds and then like a Lunar Inspiration or whatnot, it works, right? I get it. But the culprit we talked about on stream today was Savage Roar. And this is the question I posed to you, oh, YouTube comments. Tiger's Fury on the GCD may be a contentious point, but really it doesn't feel that bad in the rotation, right? It's just you're hitting a button in the rotation normally. Maybe it should last 9 seconds or 10 seconds because the duration hasn't changed yet. Because that window of time is hard to build and then rebuild and then snapshot again. Savage Roar, I put forth to be removed. I don't think this should exist here anymore. And my thought in this tier is that Sabertooth is the easy Ferocious Bite, does more damage, refreshes Rip forever. And yes, if you Blood Talons, Tiger's Fury, your first Rip, and then you keep Ferocious Biting into it, it refreshes it to 24 seconds, and the snapshot remains forever. You have Sabertooth, right? It's boring, but it works. Cruise control, single target damage. Makes Blood Talons and Jagged Wounds no problem. Brutal Slash, your AoE option, your partial single target change, right? Tiger's Fury window, possibly with Omen of Clarity procs, right? Brutal Slash actually feels hilariously good with Moment of Clarity because you can actually start up 2 procs and then just slash, right? And it's free. You can just slash into shred, or shred, rip, or whatever. You have these moments where you do just fly out of control with Moment of Clarity. That's why maybe if they're nerfed it, I don't know. But then Savage Roar, I put forward to be replaced with Ashmane's Frenzy. Because you have rotational, cleave, and single target builder. A little bit of a rotation change. The passive, and Ashmane is the active, where it gives you that big hit of damage, that channeled ability, that extra bleed for more mastery scaling, all single target, and it gives you 3 combo points, right? It's the rotational builder. Savage Roar is just a rotational damage amp. It would feel so much better to just have an activatable builder. It's the same thing that I talked about with Balanced Druid. Losing Moon is bad because they lost another rotational builder. And you only have 2 builders, arguably, for Feral out in first single target, and you have 2 builders for AoE, right? And I think that's why Savage Roar needs to just go away. You either love Savage Roar or you hate it, and it's too contentious of a plate juggling thing to matter here. I also put forward that Elun's Guidance is also garbage truck tier. It should be removed too. But Savage Roar has to be the one that removes for Ashmane's Frenzy to come back because, of course, it would work with Blood Talons. Right? You could obviously Blood Talons your Ashmane, and then you'd open with your whole regrowth stealth, and you would rake Ashmane. And there's 4 combo points on the pull. Pulls the rotation forward a little bit more on the pull, so you're not just walking in and going rare, right? It gives you a little bit of that oof for single target, and it just fits here. Savage Roar slows the rotation down because you build Rip, like you'll build normally, right? You'll build, and then I was told do it this way. You build and you Rip first. Because Savage Roar isn't a snapshot. And then on the way back around, then once you rebuild, which look how slow it can be, then you put Savage Roar up. And then, of course, you juggle it, right? In the A-B style rotation that Feral Druid has. But the problem with Omen of Clarity being random and Primal Fury being a scaling-based crit chance on Shred or Rake for pure single target, right? It's just weird. It's just weird. Because everything else is untouched, right? Berserk is still the exact same thing. You're going to waste energy in Berserk. Moment of Clarity helps that a little bit. Everything is the same. The issue is that that's the problem, is that it needs some work, and both Feral and Balance suffer from this. Elun's Guidance is laughable. Savage Roar is a problem. Everything else works. Your tier 15 tier, tons of discussion about that on the stream today. It was ridiculous, right? LI has possibilities based on gear. Predator obviously has a huge amount of situational potential with AoE, because you're thrashing things, you're getting your bleed up, you're cross ripping and raking things, right? Predator keeps resetting, you keep getting that damage amp to keep doing the AoE cross off that Feral Druid's good at. You keep getting that energy back, right? It slows it down a little bit because of the GCD, whatever. And then Blood Scent is just pure good on single target because it gives you more crit modifier on Primal Fury, which again is a thing. If you get those beautiful shred rakes for 5 combo points, that feels wonderful. But if you don't, even I have 30% haste right now. If you get no crits and no Omen of Clarity procs, Feral Druid is so excruciatingly slow. Especially if you're just waiting around to build to put back up your 15% damage amp. It's not very engaging. It's the same problem that Windwalker had back in the day when it had all these X plus Y plus Z plus A plus B equals your damage. And they've fixed that with Windwalker because that was... Yeah. But Incarnation right now is super good. Just because of all the perks and all the different traits you have right now on live. Incarnation, of course, is still good. However, I am putting forward in my notes that Incarnation really needs a graphical overhaul because nothing happens. That roar was actually the auto AFK roar, not the roar. So the blood cloud is all you get. It starts like to render poorly depending on where you move. Additionally, you don't even get the red berserk cat lightning anymore. You don't get the armor because they removed the armor because it had problems with scaling over top of your cat form, your special cat forms. So I'm putting forward that hopefully this gets a graphical overhaul update, sound effect at least. Can we, why the hell, what? This goes back on the whole GCD argument. If Blizzard wants GCD abilities to feel powerful when you're actually hitting them like bam, Avatar, bam, Incarnation, it needs to do something. So we'll see about that. I personally like Soul of the Forest. I like the way that Soul of the Forest feels in the rotation. I like being able to use a finisher, have a little bit more energy to come back around the bend, right? To open up that A-B rotation, right? And even arguably, Soul of the Forest plus Moment of Clarity plus Lunar Inspiration feels that you can do A, which is Rip, and then B, which is Ferocious Bites, and then go right back to A, which is Rip, right? You have the ability to do that. But again, if Blood Talons and Savage Roar and Jagged Wounds are the best DPS, or Incarnation, right? These are whatever. Either bigger cooldown or just your bleeds are faster. If you don't take Jagged Wounds, you actually get to do A-B in the rotation. You actually have to do A, C, A, B, A, C, A, B. Like you have to rotate through and you have to refresh Savage Roar early because it will fall off otherwise during things, which is bad. So this just doesn't work. Or the other option is Savage Roar needs to have some... It's like Tiger's Fury baseline, where when you use Tiger's Fury, it might work with your combo points baseline, but not use them. But it gives you more of a longer buff depending on how many combo points you have when you use it. I don't know. Because you always use Tiger Fury. Normally, when you build the 5, you snap it, and then you immediately go back into rip and rake, right? So, most of the time. Not all the time. Most of the time. And that would feel fine. It would still give you a little bit of that synergy with that scale, but it wouldn't give you the stacking nonsense that this happened, right? But everything else, as I said before, is the same. Swipe still has the same cost and deals damage against bleeding targets. Thrash is still there, so you would Thrash Omen of Clarity for cleaving targets because the bleed damage of Thrash is pretty low, actually. It's just an AoE enabler for Swipe to do more damage. And that's all still here for the Cat Druid. But I want to know, let me know in the comments down below what you think of the Savage Roar situation, possible changes for Elun's Guidance. I'm not sure what should be here. Maybe it needs to be an AoE-oriented talent because Moment of Clarity amplifies your base kit. Blood Talons is rotational. and it's the snapshotting. They can't remove Blood Talons, right? Blood Talons, Tiger's Fury has to stay because it's one of the only specs in the game that still has snapshotting. And it's a core part of Feral. I don't want to take that away from you. This needs to go. But your Druid Sneeze is the same. Updates to your affinities are there. Wild Charge, because of the balance nerf to balance affinity, obviously will have a little bit less of a potential there. And the end of the video, I want to show you Tiger Dash, because this is the replacement to Displacer Beast, which I think is phenomenal. Because Displacer Beast was fun, but it was too powerful, right? Tiger Dash is a 200% movement speed sprint on a 45-second cooldown that gradually decays over 4 seconds. This is hilarious. As a cat, moving around and having the utility to move around and stay, of course, in cat form is so much easier. If you're a Balanced Druid or a Resto Druid or a Guardian Druid, when you use Tiger Dash, it'll put you in cat form. Same thing we do with Displacer Beast, puts you in cat form. And you're in cat form, you move, and you shift right back out to whatever you need to go to. But Tiger Dash for cat is so strong. You only need to ever move in quick bursts normally, and if you don't need that, you can take Renewal to heal you and keep you alive, because dead DPS does no DPS, or you can take Wild Charge for the different versions of it, right? If you can actually go outside, you can do the leap forward with tribal form, or of course you do the non-shape-shifted, like yank yourself to a friendly target, or the cat form one is the Shadow Step version. But again, they buffed the baseline dash again, so there was a lot of back and forth on how Tiger Dash is bad, but as another melee player, it's hilariously good. It's so much better. Don't tell Ret Paladins, but it's way better than Horse. Don't tell them that, though. I'm sorry if you're a Ret Paladin right now and you're listening to this right now, but it's so better than Horse. It's so good, because it's just enough movement speed for when you need it, and that's all you need. So, but that's the Feral Druid. Overall, not a whole lot of changes, except that's the problem. So let me know down below what you think. Of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you enjoy my ramblings. Go check out the Twitch channel if you want to be part of all the testing. Hopefully when we come back around to Feral and Balance in particular and a few other specs in the second pass in a month and a half or so from now, right sometime in June, we will see some updates, some improvements, some tweaks, just enough. But Feral needs something, so does Balance. Let me know what you think. Hit me up on Twitter if I made a huge mistake. Or again, poke me in the live stream when I'm testing the next Druid class. Because all we're doing is Druids. There's just Druids coming up next. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next First Pass video.